6 p.m. Eastern to Extra Innings for discussions with sports figures, artists, mental health professionals, many others. That's Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Wise Content Creates Wealth. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Friday afternoon from 1 p.m. to 2. They say content is king. Well, wise content rules the world. Every episode features tools and tips for content marketing and business people telling the wise content stories of that success. Tune in every Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 on talkradio.nyc.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Have you ever thought of reinventing yourself? Are you looking to create a new life's journey? Hi, I'm Kevin Barbaro, host of Coffee Talk XL every Tuesday night live, 8 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live to hear me and my guests from a variety of different backgrounds. As a former college coach and a current full-time actor and owner of multiple companies, my show is as eclectic as my life. That's Coffee Talk XL every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Good evening. Welcome to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver. I'm an employment law and business law attorney, and I have this show on Talk Radio NYC every Tuesday night from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where my guests and I discuss issues of the day, mainly issues regarding employment, labor, and business, and how these topics around those fields impact business owners as we go through the pandemic. And in line with that mission of my show, I'm very pleased tonight to have my guest, Ms. Ellen Keiley. Ellen is the founder and president of EMK Consulting Group. Ellen, welcome to the show. I think you might be muted, but happens all the time. Welcome,
okay.
Welcome aboard.
Well, thanks for having me, Eric.
A pleasure to have you on, Ellen, for sure. I'm going to give you a more proper introduction in just a moment. I want to just talk a little bit about our topic tonight. I mentioned the show's overall goals around business and what challenges companies and entrepreneurs face. So we're talking tonight about networking and PR during the pandemic. And a lot of us know that networking and public relations have long been two crucial ways for business owners and entrepreneurs to gain exposure for your product or your service, right? And to stay top of mind with your clients, your customers, and your referral sources. And I think that each require a certain understanding of social norms, professional etiquette, and understanding of what it means to build relationships and to put yourself out there and be visible. So what happens when a 20-month pandemic comes along, turns the usual forms of networking and the forms of PR to some extent on their head? How does a business owner network And how do they create PR during the COVID-19 pandemic, where things like working from home and restricted social connection and other aspects of COVID-19 are, I mean, to some extent, they're still here and still keeping people somewhat remote and disconnected from one another. And so tonight, I'm very pleased to have Miss Ellen Keiley, as I mentioned, distinguished PR, marketing, and business development coach and consultant, and founder of EMK Consulting Group. And as she will be my guest tonight on Employment Law Today. And along those lines, Ellen, before I get some questions for you, I want to give our guests just a little more context about your background while you're on the show tonight, talking about this topic. So Ellen Keiley, her firm, which she's the president of, EMK Consulting Group, specializes in marketing and business development, coaching, and consulting, along with PR relations services for law firms and other professional service organizations. Ellen has over 20 years of experience working in and with law firms. And she's a known authority on networking, on personal branding, marketing, and business development, and has been quoted and featured in publications such as the Wall Street Journal, you may have heard of it, Bloomberg, and Boston Magazine. Additionally, Ellen has an Ask Ellen column in Lawyers Weekly. Ellen is active in the community, and she is the past president of the National Association of Women MBAs Boston chapter. Ellen also serves on the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce Women's Network Advisory Board. She chairs the Boston Club's Members Engagement Committee at Metro West Group, and serves as the vice chair for the city's year's legal community and women's leadership breakfast. Ellen is also a certified professional coach and has been recognized for her work as a top business development coach and public relations firm for law firms by Massachusetts Lawyers Weekly for the past several years. She's a previous Massachusetts Lawyers Weekly Excellence in Marketing Award recipient, and Ellen has also received an Idealism in Action Award from City Year Boston. So I think it's fair to say, Ellen, two things from all that. One, you must be quite busy, and two, that you certainly have a lot of experience, it seems, in this realm to talk about the topic of networking and PR today. That's a fair statement.
I would say so. I absolutely love networking. So yes, and I do a lot of it, no doubt.
Yes, and same here. In fact, I think we're introduced through networking through a mutual circle of colleagues who may have met through networking, and then introduced me to you, and then we started talking. Here we're on the show. So it's definitely an important, I think, aspect of anyone's, in my opinion, business practice, whatever you might do, to be out there networking.
Yeah,
So
no,
I oh, yep, absolutely. Let me ask you a question, just Ellen, to start off with. Maybe if you can tell our guests a little bit more about yourself, like how you got into PR and marketing, and what was the passion there that sparked the flame for you?
Well, it was interesting. When I first started out in my career, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and I quickly realized that I was always connecting the firms that I work with potential clients. Also, at one point I was working for a very large firm, and they were working with a very high-powered PR firm, and they were never in the media, and I didn't understand that. So I started getting them in the media, and I loved it. So that's sort of what spurred my switch in my career.
Interesting. It's funny how many people I meet and I've met over the years, Ellen, who the conversation starts out with the fact that they at one point either being curious about law or wanted to be an attorney, and yet found a different passion, like different path, I think that works for them. It's interesting that actually you had that experience while working in the legal field with law firms.
Yes, yeah, I found my calling, no doubt.
Yes, yeah, sounds like a good way to segue into the topic itself. So I talk about this PR and marketing, and people hear the term all the time, those phrases, but what would you say are some reasons that a business owner, let's say, or an attorney would want to attract media coverage? Besides the exposure to potential new clients, what other reasons might one be interested in that?
Yes, so number one, I would say it's showing that you are an expert. If you're appearing in the media, you are showing that you're an expert in a certain area, and that never hurts for potential clients. But there's different reasons, certainly visibility. but I've seen attorneys that were, I got an article placed in a major publication, and a general counsel read the article and invited him to speak at a major GC conference. So there's just so many reasons. I've seen an attorney that was always trying to get a lunch with the general manager of a hotel, and he was not calling her back. And then she appeared in a publication, and he reached out, "Hey, I saw you in the media. Let's have lunch." So yeah, there's so many different reasons, but it certainly helps with your credibility.
Yeah, it's that whole authoritative stance you have, whenever your field may be, right? Whether you're an attorney or in another profession where people need to trust you and know that you have a command, a mastery of your practice, of your area of expertise, I suppose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it never hurts to be quoted in the Wall Street Journal. So
Right, for sure. Yeah, that little known or slightly known publication. And I think it's also interesting too, because you and I have talked before. I've heard you say, I'll paraphrase it to some extent, that it's important, of course, you get visible, you get noticed, notarized, noticed rather, by not just your clients, but also your colleagues, right? That can sort of carry a certain level of respect in terms of when they refer things out, whom they want to refer things to. And it could also be a way of sort of just having your name circulating. I find that it percolates in people's minds, so that you might get a call from someone 10 months down the road that you met maybe twice last year, and you kind of wonder, how do they think about my name when someone called them with an issue? And then you realize that they say, "Oh, well, I saw you on this podcast," or "I saw you write an article posted on LinkedIn." So I wonder if you've seen that to be the case with your clients.
yeah, so I mean, even for myself, whenever I publish my Ask Alan column in Lawyers Weekly, I get clients from it. People read it and they like what I have to say. But yes, I see clients also get clients from being published or quoted. And, even just me, the past couple of weeks, I have a major potential client, and I've known this person for years, and it was the Ask Ellen column. She read it in Lawyers Weekly and was like, "I need to call Ellen." So yeah, it absolutely can help turn into client work, no doubt.
Yeah, I imagine it would also perhaps, for people out there listening, watching tonight, to know that like people might feel more at ease to approach you if they see your name in a column or in a weekly publication. Is that something you recommend that a lot of your clients do, to somehow to find a way to get in touch with, let's say, a publication and get a weekly or monthly column going?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a very prestigious opportunity to have, your own column type thing. It's not the easiest thing to do, but I have been able to do that for some clients. So it's highly, highly recommended. And, I'll even give you another example. I had gotten an article placed in Banker and Tradesman, and the attorney was contacted by someone in Zurich that read the article and ended up hiring him to do a deal here in Boston. So there's, it gets noticed. It's shareable content for social media, and it's good all around.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. Gets you visible on social media as well. Gets everyone to kind of get to know more about you. And again, there's that serendipity moment where people might then introduce you to somebody else who might then have a speaking opportunity. And I find that PR or networking and just getting out there, it tends to grow and feed upon itself, right? You're putting stuff out there a lot. Maybe this is true in life. Maybe people listening tonight can think about their own journey with their business, their company, like their store, their firm, where they get in front of people in different ways, writing, speaking, creating video marketing, and before they know it, just people tend to travel in similar circles, and you start to see the same faces. Definitely, I think it's good to hear you talk about that column that you have, and how you've had clients you've been able to get that, encourage them to have a column as well.
Yeah, it's certainly good for your personal brand and your firm brand as well.
Right, and we, believe it or not, are up to our first commercial break. So we're going to take a quick break, Ellen, and when we come back, we'll talk about some common obstacles that business owners and people might face, professionals, when you're networking and working on PR during the pandemic. But first, I'll just put a note in that we're listening to Talk Radio NYC, and I'm your host of the show, Employment Law Today. I'm Eric Sauver, here tonight with my guest, Ellen Keiley of EMK Consulting Group. So stick around. Be right back.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver, employment law and business law attorney, here tonight with my guest, Ellen Keiley. Ellen is a distinguished PR, marketing, and business development coach, and we're talking about networking and PR during the pandemic. And again, Ellen, it's really great to have you on the show, and I just want to note that you are muted because when the commercial break comes out, everyone, there you go. So it's really great to have you. I want to thank you again for sharing with us tonight. You know, I think our guests are really in for a treat just hearing about your experience. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Sure thing. You know, we talked about obstacles during the pandemic and what are some common ones. And I'm just wondering, like, maybe you might even have some examples perhaps, but what are some common obstacles that businesses have been facing when it comes to networking and PR during the pandemic?
Sure. So, I mean, for those particularly that thrive off of in-person networking and events, they are having a hard time. It's a struggle, and what they really need to be doing is pivoting and being more flexible and getting out there, because it's really important to stay visible, as we've alluded to already. And so I think it's just something that people want to be doing. So firms certainly used to have events and seminars, and they'd get people in the room that had never met them before, and that just has changed, and it's more Zooms now these days. But luckily, we're actually starting to see actual in-person events and dinners happening, or at least I have been lately. I have another event even tomorrow night. So, but yeah, it's been a challenge, and for those that work from home and have young kids, that can be a challenge as well. If your child suddenly comes in the room when you're presenting or something like that, that can present a challenge as well.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's a challenge when we're home and we're doing more things by Zoom. than in person. And it's interesting too, because I wonder if like the child, in the background coming in, maybe doing a silly dance, or say somebody's in spouse or partner like coming through. I wonder if people can like remind themselves that like that might also help the networking game because it makes them more personable, it makes them more human, and people can relate. Oh, I have a 2-year-old child myself at home. I don't know if that's something that your clients have been sharing with you, experiencing that. Oh, hey, it's actually there's a humanizing effect of Zoom. We talk about it being so like virtual and two-dimensional, but has anyone shared with you like how it has helped them in that way to connect on a personal level? Or
Absolutely. I think certain clients have been able to really connect with their own clients on a very different level than they're used to, because you're seeing the human aspect, as you mentioned. You're even seeing people's pets, which I love when I see someone's dog or cat in the background, or when I see someone's, kids popping on the camera. It's adorable. So I think it does help with the human connection.
I find that interesting. I really do, because I think just coming up in business over the years, I started practicing law in early 1999, and I remember that it seems that back then, when people networked, when they thought about PR, it was like, here's your kind of business persona, and here's your personal life, and the two are very separate. And I just wonder in the last 20 months or so, if that's going to predict maybe changes in the way people, for example, the way professionals, have their PR, do they promote themselves to their clients as a three-dimensional person? Do they include their family, let's say, in pictures, on ads they might have? Do they network more and encourage family to just be around? And I'm wondering if is that a possible trend that you might be seeing these days with in the future in PR and marketing, or is it not a trend so much? It's just
Yeah, so as far as ads, I don't know that we'll see that on ads necessarily, but I could be totally wrong. But that's a really good point. And I do think just the more you can connect with someone on a personal level, the better. So I always love talking about, personal things and mentioning my kids and hearing more about from others. But I do think that's a really good point. Things are going to change, I think, going forward, no doubt.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, when you say that, it reminds me of like how I think people's reactions when it came to networking during the pandemic. I've seen people like, back in March, April 2020, they got onto a Zoom. They were giving their sort of mini introduction, their spiel about what they do, and a child came into the room in the background, and they were sort of first very flustered and trying to get the child out very quickly, and then over time, it just kind of became like more of a regular occurrence, and they seem to just almost incorporate it into the background. That this is just what it is, But I think it's interesting whether it becomes a trend or not remains to be seen. I know there is something to presenting a one-dimensional, like professional appearance, but definitely I think maybe something we can watch for. Maybe something to look for in the future. Yeah. And I'm just wondering also, has the pandemic impacted, you talked about journalists before, right? And getting in touch with writing for columns or speaking to journalists. Has the pandemic had any impact on how easy it is or hard it is for businesses or people to get publicity by talking to journalists and writers, or has that been about this, like a steady constant for you?
That's a good question. So I don't think that it has changed on, your ability to get in the media, whether it's easier or more difficult. I do know that the media is all about current events and timeliness. And so what I saw was just what was being covered changing. So for example, as you know, with employment law, that was a huge thing with, COVID in the workplace. It still is. And so you saw lots and lots of media coverage relating to that. Another trend was divorce kind of exploded. There was a lot of people that were spending a lot more time with their spouse, and they learned perhaps that wasn't a good thing. And so there was a huge trend in divorce type stories as well. So So yeah, so I saw it was just a different type of coverage essentially. But that's, yeah, it's always tying something to current events with the media. That's what they want to hear.
Yeah, thank you for that insight, Ellen, for just sharing that insightful thought about the importance of, being tapped into current events and making sure that like your PR efforts are in line with that. I think it's such an important point for people listening at home, watching at home to know. It is, I think, something that I experienced, as an employment law attorney, that in the last, say year or so, year and a half, there are more calls, for what I do and to weigh in on excerpts on podcasts or shows, TV shows, and radio, or an article. I'm wondering if when you have clients come to you, is part of your process to help them find where their service might align with a hot topic of the day? Is that something you do?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. So I have reporters that will reach out to me all the time and say, hey, Ellen, I'm doing a story on this. Do you have an expert I can interview, a quote? But I'm also proactively reaching out to media based on my client's target audience. And just as an example, I had a client that just got a major verdict. And so I immediately, jumped on that. I got him a TV appearance. I got him on the radio. I got him quoted in the local paper, right? It's all about sort of what is relevant based on the topic and the publication. So yes, I definitely target media based on the topic and the client's interests.
Right. Well, hoping that a client with the verdict that he got, hoping it wasn't the defendant getting a verdict against him, but more that I take it either the prosecutor or defense attorney, probably, but or maybe if it's civil case, the plaintiff's counsel. But interesting that you have that as an example. I know that you mentioned in your bio, we're talking that you focus a lot on law firms and attorneys, and I'm wondering if do you focus more on the smaller firms out there, in case our audience might have some attorneys listening tonight, or do you focus on the bigger firms, or how would you describe your practice in that way?
It all depends. I have some clients that are actually 2 attorney law offices, but I'd say most of my clients tend to be mid-sized firms, and but there's exceptions too. So it depends on who wants to invest in being in the media and raising their visibility. Some really find it important and understand, how it helps them to be out there. And, it's all about sort of budget type thing. So, but yeah, and I also do a lot with wealth management folks. So, that's always a hot topic, wealth management and what's going on in the world. So I work with them as well, and as well as CPAs. So.
Right. I suppose all those topics, are, and all those professions, wealth management, CPA, attorney, are sort of they're very staples, right? They've been around for a long time. We'll be around, hopefully be around for many years more. My hope is at least until I decide to retire one day, but we'll be around for some time. And I certainly the same can be said for PR and marketing. I think there's no replacement, in my opinion, for the services that you do. I think that something to be said for someone who can, keep their finger on the pulse and help people to get their names in articles or an interview. And so that's, I think, really something that, glad to have you here tonight and talking about, that not only what you do, but also on just trends you've seen in networking and PR during this pandemic.
Yeah, and I think, what I do, it's called earned media. So it's not, anyone can, purchase space and control the content, but earned media is, expertise essentially. So it's, it comes with a lot of respect, as you had mentioned earlier.
I think it's an important point maybe we can talk a bit more about, because I think people often think of PR and marketing. I think a lot of folks, listening tonight, and when they might think of marketing as you take out a commercial on the air, you put an ad up or a billboard, but that term you use, that earned media, right? Earned coverage based on your knowledge or your skill set, your relevance. I think that does make a difference when people learn about you that way as compared to learning about you by seeing, your name on a billboard. And I'm
Yes.
wondering, is that something that you've had to explain to your clients that when they first hire you, that, hey, this is a lot of this about, getting your talent and your knowledge and expertise and putting it out there and by these publications and interviews and such?
Yes, I definitely have. It's all about, building your credibility. And, I think it's good to have a whole media mix. I advertise myself, I sponsor major events. It's good branding, but I think it's nice to have a mix and have some earned media as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we, Ellen, are not up to our second commercial break. So we'll take that break now. Folks, you're listening to or watching Employment Law Today on Talk Radio NYC. I'm here tonight with my guest, Ellen Keiley. We're discussing networking and PR and marketing tips during the pandemic. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Howdy, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who will expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauver, employment law, business law attorney, and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc, now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. Once again, I'm your host, Eric Sauver, here tonight with my guest, Ellen Keiley, founder and president of EMK Consulting Group. Ellen is, as I mentioned, a top-notch networking and PR consultant, coach, business advisor, and here tonight with us. And we're very happy to have you on the show. Ellen, good to see you.
Thanks.
Sure thing. I was wondering on the commercial break about any examples, let's say, that you might have. Let's say, I'm just wondering an example like, a client you may have had that you may have helped to take from low exposure to like positive press and high exposure, what that may have been like for you and for them.
Sure. So I absolutely love getting my clients in the media. It's a great feeling when you have those successes, and I'm fortunate that I regularly get my clients in the media, so I can take a firm and really build their brand and get them significant coverage on a regular basis. So I'm fortunate enough to see it all the time with all my clients, actually. So.
Nice. Yep, for sure. I'm not sure how much you're allowed to share. I wouldn't want you to infringe on anyone's confidentiality, but then again, we're talking about PR exposure, so I don't know how confidential that part would be. But are there any like old war stories? Maybe war stories are the wrong term, but like an interesting story of like, hey, this is one of my interesting clients. They started out this way and they ended up in the New York Times, or any like a particular, like an anecdote that comes to mind or something like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen firms that I started working with that were never in the media before, and then all of a sudden they were all over the media, and they were loving it as well. So yeah, I've seen a significant increase, and they're very happy about it, and they love it when they get a call from a friend, another lawyer, in Boston, or an email, hey, I saw you in the media. People really enjoy that. It's a good feeling to be seen out there. So, but yeah, and then, the coaching side as well. I've worked with attorneys where they were a fairly young associate, and they had a friend that was in-house counsel, and they wanted them as a client, but they didn't really have the confidence to ask them for business. And so I've even worked with attorneys around that to get comfortable asking for business. And then you see a new client result, and that's a great feeling as well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you mentioned the coaching part too, because that's right. You do not just PR, but you also, right, you said you coach people in terms of like how to go out there and do their actions they need to take, right, to get the PR. Because I imagine that you can only do so much. I mean, you can get them the spot, but they have to show up, right? You can get them the reporter that's interested, but that attorney or that accountant or business person has to call them back and write a summary, give them a good quote. So I suppose it's probably am I right? Is it a hand-in-hand process with you and your clients?
Yeah, so I help my clients build up their bios. I help them get into leadership positions or board positions, or writing, speaking, all of that. And often it depends on the publication, but the larger, more prestigious the publication, they want to see an impressive bio. It's why should I quote your client when there's someone else that is very, very impressive. So I certainly help them to build up their bio and look good to get those opportunities as well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean it is important, right, to have that that background and to present it to a reporter. I suppose having knowledge about, as you mentioned earlier in the show, a hot topic of the day is important. It's just it must be nice also like to see the fruits of your labor, because you do the work, and then like you can see, you put in this time, and now this client of yours is, and maybe on CNN or getting quoted in a newspaper or on some other podcast. It must be, I'm sure, a good feeling like you can actually see the fruits of your labor.
Absolutely. And another thing that often happens is I'll get a client in the media on a specific topic, and then a reporter at another publication is doing a story on a similar topic. They do a Google search, find them, and reach out to interview them. So it can really expand into so many different opportunities. And just maybe, I don't know, a few months ago, I got a client in a major national publication, and someone in London, I think it was the London Times, saw the article and reached out and interviewed him. So that just gives you an example of the reach media has.
Yeah, in terms of you can be quoted somewhere or seen in one avenue, one venue, one forum, and then it spreads to another one, to another, and pretty soon you might be picked up as a story, or somebody else reached out to you. I suppose that's all part of this whole PR and marketing and such.
Yes, it definitely piggybacks off each other, and the more you're out there, the better. So.
Right, absolutely. When you're in the coaching, have your coaching hat on, with your clients, in what ways do you find your work different than when you're sort of not in the coaching, but you're hired as you're the PR woman that they go to, you're the person? Is there anything that makes it different or more interesting for you to be a coach, or?
Yeah, so I absolutely love coaching people. I get energized by it, and it's an amazing feeling when people tell you helped them. And I absolutely love the PR side of things and get energized by that. But I think they're very complementary. So to the extent a firm engages me to coach, say, their attorneys, I'm able to get them to write articles, for example, when they normally might not even have even the confidence to write an article. A lot of people are afraid, what if I say something wrong, or how is it going to come out? And then, they publish the article and say, wow, I wrote this. This is amazing. And so I often uncover, something maybe a new law coming out down the road that they normally wouldn't even think of telling me, because I'm there coaching. So I think they're very complementary services, and very beneficial. And with coaching too, everyone isn't meant for the media. There's some people that love being quoted or being on the radio, and there's other people that fear that. So I always say you need to focus on your strengths and interests, right? If you love networking and hate writing, focus on networking. So, but it's coaching is very, very individualized. And I work with everyone from the managing partner with a major book of business to someone right out of school. So it's across levels.
Yeah, interesting. I like what you said about, I like what you said about the two things. One, the confidence, right? Like helping them, through coaching to build their confidence. I've had several different types of coaches on this show, Ellen, over the months and over the last year and change. And it seems like whatever they're coaching in, whether it's finance or wealth empowerment or business, in your case, PR, marketing, networking, sort of instilling that confidence, or helping to boost and draw out their clients' confidence in themselves. That hey, they can do this. They can get on TV and give that quote. But I also appreciate what you said, that people work within their comforts, like what they're comfortable in, their areas of comfort and their strengths. So if somebody loves to network but dreads writing an article, or goes right to networking, or if they love it to speak in front of the camera, but don't enjoy one-on-one meetings, maybe they play to their strengths. So it seems like an interesting mix. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing.
Yes, and I definitely encourage everyone to get out of their comfort zone, but it's just you're going to be there's only there's different ways you can market yourself, right? There's networking, there's writing, there's speaking, there's being on boards, there's different ways, and most people usually can do one or two of those things. It's to the extent you can do all of those, you're well positioned, but yeah, I mean, you really want to focus, because you're going to be more likely to do something if it's something you enjoy, right? So whereas if someone absolutely dreads writing an article, I'm not going to say, do that. However, I will say, there was an attorney that I worked with that probably for about a year. He wanted to write an article, but he didn't yet have that confidence. And so I worked on him. He finally published the article and was so happy he did that, because he got, amazing exposure, amazing outreach saying, hey, I read your article, congratulations. And then he wanted to do more of that. So definitely get out of your comfort zone. But I do say focus on your strengths and interests.
Yeah, as I posed that last question about comfortable areas, I realized that I agree with you that comfort zones are meant to be pushed a bit and broken a bit, that like part of growth, part of, just transition and changing and growing, it requires a temporary surrender of one's comfort, right? So, and also, but it's compatible with your other point, which is you can push yourself out of your comfort zone, but you also want to play to your strengths and areas that you're comfortable in. So I guess it's it sounds like a mix, right? Saying, if you are comfortable writing, write to your heart's content, and let's get you, out there. And I suppose these lessons that you're talking about, you're citing examples of lawyers and law firms, but I suppose that they can translate to business consultants. You mentioned, right, CPAs and startups out there looking to, get business or garner attention. But the idea that, play to your strengths and comforts, but also push yourself to be a little uncomfortable and be okay with that. I think that's an interesting lesson when you're coaching and networking and PR.
Yeah, and there's things you can do if you are interested in writing an article, but you're afraid how it's going to come out. Just work with someone to read it for you and give them, your input. So there's different things you can do to try to, get out there when you normally wouldn't have.
Right. Yeah, I think that and people often become more comfortable and familiar with something, and then it becomes like easier for them to do. I'm just wondering if people listening at home tonight, looking for takeaways, like hearing what you're talking about and hearing about the importance of, I hear accountability in this equation, right? I'm working with a PR marketing networking coach, can keep you accountable so that putting networking events on your to-do list and then deciding, I'm going to go home and watch a little Netflix instead, too often can turn into, I'll get to that down the road. So it's nice to hear you talk about, people's, being accountable as well. Do you find that setting yourself up as like an accountability partner with your clients helps them to push through and to network successfully?
Absolutely. So I always say when I meet with clients, they say, the clients have all the answers. It's a matter of pulling them out of the person and brainstorming with them and coming up with action items. And I always joke that even if it's 5 minutes before you meet with me, you will do at least one thing on that list because you don't want to tell me you didn't. But I think that's where a lot of people fall down is they don't have someone holding them accountable. So when you do, you're going to be more likely to do, be active and do things and go to that event.
Right. Yeah, they have, I think a lot of businesses out there, businesses and professional service providers, they have their client work holds them accountable. Lawyers have a court deadline. You don't want to miss that. You don't want to have a judge asking, where your motion is or what's happening with a case. You don't want your client contracts, to fall in the back burner. If you're a CPA in tax season, a lot of accountability. But networking and PR, important. They're so important, I think, to a business's survival. And yet, people can easily let that slide because it's uncomfortable and they're focused on the client work that has a deadline. So I think it's an important note, point if people watching tonight want to take away to think of PR networking as part of the important work that you do. I think for your business or companies to survive.
Yeah, I think networking is critical. I mean, it's certainly, I would say, the number one way I see others get new business, including myself. But it's just helpful. It opens doors. There's just so many benefits to networking. From even getting concert tickets that you normally couldn't get.
That's a great point to I won't say end on, but to break on. Right, we're taking a commercial break. We'll be back with more Ellen Keiley, more tips for our listeners tonight on PR and networking and more public relations during the pandemic. First, a word from our sponsor, so stick around. It's Talk Radio NYC, and we'll be right back.
Join us every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern for the Mind Behind Leadership, where we focus on what leadership really means to us and to others. We have practical discussions with the CEOs of some of the world's largest companies, owners of small businesses, and experts in psychology and behavior to get that inside track, what to do, what to avoid, and what really happens. Join me, Graham Dobbin, at the new time, 4 p.m. every Tuesday for the Mind Behind Leadership, here live on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Calling all pet lovers.
Pet Avengers, assemble!
On the Professionals and Animal Lovers show, we believe the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong. It mirrors that bond between pets and their owners. Through this program, we come together to learn, educate, and advocate.
Join us live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. at talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver, employment law and business law attorney. And here tonight with my guest, Keiley. Ellen is the founder and president of EMK Consulting Group. Ellen coaches people, as you've heard tonight, with networking and marketing and PR. And we're talking about also PR and marketing and networking during the pandemic. I am wondering, Ellen, about the question here. With more and more people, perhaps being driven towards video marketing and online video in the last 20 months, do you see any new trends in PR when it comes to like video marketing or even video podcasts or live radio shows such as this one?
Well, they're certainly becoming more and more popular. I think people are getting more used to being out there and via video and Zoom and all of that. So I think that's definitely a huge trend is more and more podcasts being out there, and just the shareability of it on social media and to build your brand.
Right. I think it also perhaps maybe invites people to explore what avenues and forums are out there to be in front of the camera or to get exposure just from recording, for sure. Is that a process that you encourage your clients to do? Like, did you find video forums for your PR clients?
Yeah, so in addition to traditional media, I guess you could say, I actually get my clients on podcasts as well. So relevant podcasts to their practice, for your example, employment law type thing. So yeah, no, I think it's a great way to get out there. And another thing is to have your own podcast. It's a great way to meet different people, right? I can't even imagine how many more people you now know because of your podcast. So it's a great networking tool as well.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I think it's been very true for me. I can only speak from my experience to that point. The start of this podcast, it's very actually a live talk radio show weekly, but it's also a video, I guess you can say vodcast, if you will, a video show as well. But having started this in September 2020 and really being motivated, pushed a bit, by the pandemic and being at that point much less in physical presence of people, right? That's physical, because the summer of 2020 was a very different scene than it is now. But I can just say I have actually met more and more people such as yourself. And so it does become a way to not only get your name and your brand or product or service out there, but also to meet people and network with them in the process, and then do a one-on-one or join a group that they're in. So I think it shows me how interconnected, all these different things are, marketing, PR, and networking.
Yeah, and as I've mentioned previously, it's good to have a mix, be in various types of media as opposed to just one type of thing. And podcasts have amazing reach as well. So certainly a good thing to do, no doubt.
Yeah, it reminds me kind of a friend of mine. The story I remember once about 6 years ago, a friend of mine was going out in his own business, an own tax strategy consulting practice, and he was trying to get his name out there and known on his own. He was asking my advice, and he called me up and he asked me just a question. He said, I'm not sure what I should be doing. Should I be networking? Should I be marketing? Should I be speaking? Should I be writing? And I said yes, meaning all of the above, to the extent you can. Of course, no one is Superman or Superwoman or super being, and can't do everything. But it was just, I found the question interesting because I find that people often approach the concept of publicity, PR, public relations, exposure as, do I do this or that? And the idea that you can mix it up and do a both and approach. I think some people don't always think of that. So I suppose you might have seen that just in your experience of people kind of coming in with a narrow focus, and then you help them to broaden into different channels. Is that Is that accurate or?
Yeah, exactly. So I meet with clients and I can really help develop a tailored strategy on what specifically is going to work for that person. Again, based on their strengths and interests. But yes, I help guide them because a lot of people have no idea what to do as far as marketing. Like you said, should I do this or that? And it's finding what's going to work for you.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Finding what feels comfortable, and what, perhaps what your audience might be prone towards. If you're in a business where kind of the bulk, or rather the mass approach, that you get as many leads as you can, and hope that something sticks, you might be looking at how do you get in front of a mass audience. And so it's interesting to have the different perspective you shared with us tonight. We know, believe it or not, we have 3 minutes left in the show, which I'm always amazed to me, Ellen, how fast the time goes when we're having fun. But what I would like to give my guests the last 2 minutes to talk about, how people can contact you, any events or columns you have going on. The floor is yours, and then I'll spend the last minute taking us out. So I defer to you if you want to share how do we reach you, how to put your website and such.
I appreciate that, Eric. So my website's emkconsultinggroup.com, and my email address is ellenkeiley@emkconsultinggroup.com. So it's Keiley. And I have a Twitter account as well at Ellen M. Keiley.
Right. And are there any upcoming publications? I know you've listed a lot of things in your bio. Any interesting article, a name of an article you want to share with us tonight, or?
Well, yeah. So the next thing out will be my Ask Ellen column, and I welcome any topic ideas if you have one. So that's, often I get that someone has a question, or I get it through my coaching. Some trends I'm seeing in coaching, challenges people are having. I'll write about that. So, but Lawyers Weekly will be the next thing, definitely.
Okay, so we have your website,
your
contact information, your name, and the Ask Ellen Lawyers Weekly column that people can Google and write into. Really good to have all the information. Well, Ellen, we are coming close to the end of the show. We're getting to that 6 p.m. mark, if you can believe it. Once again, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I think the audience can appreciate just your succinct, your direction, and what the tips you have, and the way you shared them tonight. So, I want to thank you, Ellen Keiley from EMK Consulting Group, for being a guest on employment law today. And folks back home, if you're listening tonight and you have issues around employment or business that affect your company or your practice, tune in Tuesday nights at 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here at talkradio.nyc. You can go to the website for the audio. You can go to the station's Facebook page at facebook.com/talkradionyc and check us out. So thank you all for listening tonight. Thank you, Ellen, for being here. Stick around for some great, exciting shows on the station. And I will see everyone next Tuesday. So, Ellen, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
It was a pleasure, indeed.